Hello, my name is Tudor Drâmbărean. I come from a very small town in Romania, or better say Transylvania, which is probably more well known thanks to Bram Stoker. I work for the municipality, so I'm going to change a little bit the perspective on Jewish heritage. Um, Compared to my previous speakers, I will talk from the point of view of a local authority, municipality. We are a small city, but quite ambitious, situated in the center of Transylvania. We're a historic town, 2,000 years of history, Roman heritage, uh, Baroque heritage, medieval heritage, Renaissance, Jewish heritage. So it's quite a culturally diverse city with a lot of monuments, a lot of history behind. That's our landmark, is the Vauban Fortress, is the biggest in Romania, and which was restored recently, the last 7 years, by the municipality with EU funding. So thanks to the European Union, we've managed to access quite approximately 70 million euros to restore the citadel and some other monuments within. Even though the municipality only has 70,000 inhabitants, so you can imagine it's quite small, and the budget of the city is around 20 million euros. So you can imagine how much the EU funds helped us in restoring the monuments. This is where we are situated. Alba, Iulia is right in the center of the country. Western part is the Transylvanian part. It's the place where Jewish people were first invited by the Hungarian principal Gabriel Bethlen in the 17th century, I think. And where they officially settled. So it's the landmark in Romania for where they first officially settled. There are some other historic records, but that's what we know so far from historians. It's a city full of history. It wasn't like that. It's changed in the last 10 years, and it was the municipality's ambition to change this perspective and to become from an industrialized city into a touristic cultural city. This is where the Jewish cemetery is located in Alba, Iulia. A century ago it was probably at the outskirts of the city, but right now you can see it's very close to the city center. The heart of the city is the citadel, which is in the red shape, or looks right. And the Jewish cemetery is very close to the city center, as I said, and also there's a lot of monuments, a lot of old Jewish buildings. We have the oldest masonry synagogue in Transylvania, also in the city center. So it's all very near located towards the center of the city. This is an aerial view of the Jewish cemetery of Alba, Iulia. There's an old sector on the right side, and the newer sector is on the left side. It's approximately 2 hectares. It's one of the biggest in the region. Of course, there are others in Timișoara, in Arad probably, but still it's very impressive. I will tell you a few things about it in the next few slides. This was just a short introductory for you to understand where I'm coming from and what is the situation with our Jewish heritage at the moment and what we're trying to do in the future to support the local Jewish community. As in most Eastern European towns, the Jewish community is very small nowadays. We have approximately 20 people living, and in most cities, most villages is the same situation. A lot of Jewish heritage, cemeteries, synagogues, which are not very well kept always, because it's pretty complicated if you think that there are a few hundred cemeteries and synagogues only in Romania and only a few thousand Jewish people. So that's where the municipality comes in and tries to support the local Jewish community in order to set an example perhaps to other municipalities. It all started with a project which we implemented a few years ago called Being a Jew. It's a EU-funded project, and the idea was to show the importance of Jewish heritage to local young people, to invite them to see the synagogue, to see the cemetery, to explore a culture which some have never met before. And there were a lot of young people, even in their 20s, which never visited the synagogue before or the Jewish cemetery. They had no idea that was in the city. So this was a very interesting project for us as well, to see the vibe of the young people, to see how they react to this new type of heritage, while they were mostly used to the Roman heritage, to the medieval one. This was a bit more out of their reach at that point, we realized. And we thought it was very interesting because they embraced what they saw and they reacted quite positively. So we took them to some sites. There's the synagogue on the left and the Jewish cemetery on the right, to show them how things look like. And they were quite impressed, as we were, you can imagine, because they never entered the Jewish cemetery before. They had no idea there was one in the city center, and being quite in a good shape, I must say. And also we, well, we had various events. One of the events was an exposition. Another one was a theater play about a Jewish event. And this was from the exposition showing official documents from 80 years ago, records related to Jewish culture and Jewish presence in our city. Now to move to a subject which is also closer to the Jewish cemetery. At the local level, we have also a university which is very involved in preserving the Jewish cemetery, and they try to implement a project in which they restored some of the stones, some of the matzevas, and also they tried to do a mapping, a digital mapping of all the cemetery, and they produced this volume on the right, which is also in a digital format, showing the oldest sector of the cemetery and the most important parts from that side of the cemetery. And they want to continue the project with support from the Ministry of Culture and from the municipality as well. This is a digital mapping of the old sector, and they want to extend it to the new sector. The idea is to have all this information on a platform which can be accessible to anyone from anywhere on the planet which might be interested in seeing the Jewish cemetery and finding some relative information, for example, from their related to their ancestors or so on. As I said, the Jewish cemetery is quite in a good shape. Although we tried as a municipality to intervene in various ways, not to intervene on the site, but to do some fundraising, because that's our specialty, to find some funds, even if the two sites are not yet historic monuments. So you can imagine it's a bit complicated. The Ministry of Culture provides only symbolic funding at this point, if I could be polite. And we are trying to find for alternative ways of financing these monuments. And we had our focus on the Jewish cemetery, knowing that the Jewish synagogue was already in a restoration project financed by the National Association of Jewish Associations in Romania. So we applied for the War Monuments Fund project, hoping that we would be listed in the watch list. We tried that 2 times. We're still trying to access. It's pretty tough when you compete with the, I don't know, Pyramid of Giza or some other well-known monuments. I mean, it's not the Jewish cemetery in Venice, or it's relatively less known, the site. Of course, we took this risk. We understood that this might not be as relevant, but we're still trying. I mean, that is the most important factor, to try and to find alternative ways to support sites like these, which are important for the local heritage, and to try to integrate it along with other cultural sites of the city. So, as I said, the Jewish synagogue, this is an old picture. I'm going to show you how it looks now. Yes, this is this was done last week, so I'm sure you will like more of these photos. And the synagogue is situated right in the heart of the city as well, and we're trying to do something interesting through a project which we're implementing at the municipality. Yes, as I was saying, the World Monuments Fund, we tried to apply a few times. It's not the only funding institution, but it's one which we discovered, and we were counting to submit the project. But never mind, we will identify also other potential funding sources. This is an experiment which I want to share with you if I still have a few minutes. It's a crowdfunding campaign which we organized, since we're talking about digital tourism and marketing of Jewish heritage. It was an experiment. It didn't quite work well in terms of fundraising because, well, basically there were some mistakes in the campaign. But that's not so important. What's more important is the fact that it attracted a lot of visibility, even from the press, even international press. And we had some very good feedbacks from a lot of media, from a lot of people in the city. There were many people which were sharing this post on Facebook, for example, or Instagram, saying that's a great idea. They had no idea there was a Jewish cemetery in their city and that there was a fundraising campaign. We did it more in a symbolical way to see what people think of it. Of course, we had the agreement from the local Jewish association. And luckily, we didn't get a lot of criticism at the end because the amount was not very high. But now I can share with anyone from my experience, and I can tell them what not to do before they start such a campaign, which I think is more relevant to know. But when I started, I didn't quite have a lot of sources of information, and the outcome was not exactly what I wanted. But still, it is an innovative financing tool, crowdfunding and crowdsourcing, and other such types of platforms. Indiegogo was the one that we use. There's also Kickstarter or others. But this is a subject which is very niche at the end. So it's not, we're not selling a mobile phone that tells you your heart rate or something, that's really attached to the people's concern. It's Jewish heritage, so you have to know exactly who you're focusing to, and you need to have the list of people before you actually start the campaign, which I didn't know. And even though you have 2 months to raise the money, it's still fairly difficult to do so unless you have the right contacts, the networks to share, to appeal to the right people or organizations. But again, it's important to know about it, to use it in the right way, not to ask for a huge amount. Don't expect that people will start donating millions of dollars, because they won't. They'll barely donate a few dollars, which is still a good thing, but as I was saying, don't have very high hopes from the start. It's better to be realistic than to dream too high, in a way. Okay, as I was saying, Facebook is an important tool, but also other instruments. I'd like to thank the previous speakers who have very well explained the role of blogs, Facebook, Instagram, and other such tools. This is just 2 examples. So on the left, we have on a Facebook page, Visit Alba, Iulia, which is also a blog, telling about the documentary film which our municipality produced, also in order to promote Jewish heritage. I don't know if we'll have time. The movie is about 28 minutes. Maybe we can see it one evening. And on the right, thank you, Jewish Heritage Europe, for supporting our campaign. Even though, as I said, it wasn't financially so successful, still we had many positive replies, and a lot of people now know that we have Jewish heritage in our city. Excuse me. Okay. Now, as a municipality, we are implementing various solutions, projects, from transnational projects to infrastructure, so on, and this is the newest and one of the most interesting is a smart city project, which we're implementing in partnership with over 70 companies. And it's innovative because the municipality attracted a lot of companies which bring their own solutions in the city at their own costs. So that's, sorry. And what I want to show you here is just one of the solutions, which is a mobile app called Alba, Iulia, and it uses beacons which are installed at the Jewish cemetery and close to the synagogue. And a tourist coming to the city, if going around the city, the app will push all the information close to where he is. So, for example, if there's an interesting monument, it will push him some information, like you will see on the right. And when he gets about 50 meters from the synagogue, he will receive the information about the synagogue. So it's an interesting way of promoting a historic monument in an innovative way, which is more and more used by young people and everyone. So this is just one of the apps which is being introduced, has been introduced at the moment. I will show you how it looks. On the left is the photo of the synagogue, and there's a text as well with a bit of history, and on the right is the Jewish cemetery with as well some information. And in the middle there's the app and how the tourist will see what's happening around him. Okay, and this is another project which we're implementing with support from the Ministry of Culture. QR codes as well for tourists which want to discover a movie and some photos about the cemetery or the synagogue. They will scan the QR code and they will receive on their mobile relevant information. We have free Wi-Fi in most touristic places in the city, so it's quite easy for anyone to receive such or to access this type of information and to have a new experience. And the next step will be to have augmented reality, and we have a company which is working with us on photographing 3D images of the synagogue or the Jewish cemetery or other monuments, and they will offer another experience, which probably is also very interesting for tourists who will come to the city. Last but not least, as I was saying, we managed to produce in 2015 a documentary movie called Testimonies Carved in Stone. It's interesting because it presents the Jewish heritage in the city, and at the same time the movie was produced using the latest video graphics technology, so drones and all sorts of interesting gadgets which brought a different version of a movie, of such a movie about Jewish heritage. So I invite you to see it. There's also the link below, and it's free for anyone to see. It was produced in 2015, and there's more information on the website. So, as a conclusion, we consider that heritage is very important to support for the future, and to do it in a sustainable way, and to be able to manage it also in the context of smaller Jewish communities. And it's very important also to have the support of all local stakeholders, such as the universities or other NGOs or young people, for example, schools and high schools, and to involve them as well, because it has to be sustainable at the end of the day, but it has to educate. So young people need to be educated about the history and the culture that's within their city. And we hope to set an example also for other communities and cities, not only in Transylvania or Romania, but maybe in other parts, that this can be done, and it can be done in the right way. Thank you very much.